Gear Tasting Radio is brought to you by Imminent Threat Solutions. ITS provides knowledge that empowers individuals with indispensable skill sets to explore the world and prevail against all threats. Right now, as a special thank you for all podcast listeners, we're offering 10% off in the ITS store. Simply use the code GTR to save 10% at store.itstactical.com. Welcome to Gear Tasting Radio, where we offer an in-depth look into the usage and philosophy behind the equipment in our lives. I am joined, as always, by Rob Henderson.
Hello.
And I am Brian Black. Today, we are going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is obsessive-compulsive disorder organization. And I have it. I has it. Serious. It's always been something that I've suffered with, but I'm glad that I'm able to impart knowledge onto you fine folks at home and help you share in my misery, because misery loves company, after all. So
it sucked me in.
Yeah. Honestly, it all started back when I feel like I've always kind of had a tendency to just have things organized and in their place.
Yeah.
But it didn't start, I didn't grow up with it necessarily.
Didn't kick it into overdrive.
Right. So, there was plenty of times growing up where my room was an absolute shamble, and closet was literally, you couldn't even walk into the closet because there was crap up to your chest. Or, at 9 years old, my chest was only so tall. But anyway.
Tall enough.
Right. But later in life, I worked at a photography studio, and my boss there had it super bad. And he just had a place for absolutely everything. And, at first it was kind of annoying, but after time, it made perfect sense to me. So it's like it just evolved over time. And maybe that's what I've done to you since you've worked here. But I didn't have it to that extent. I always kept things organized. My bills were always in folders and things in a filing cabinet. I was always kind of organized, but it really wasn't until I worked at that photography studio after high school that I really kind of geeked out on that. There was labels for everything. Everything had its place. It was just, it was interesting to be around. And I picked up a lot of, I don't know if you'd call them good habits. Maybe they're bad habits. But anyway, I have them. So that's what we really wanted to focus on this episode, because you said that you just came off the weekend kind of doing some organization stuff.
So the turning point for me was I had just recently built a rifle, and I wanted to get an extended trigger guard, like the Magpul one. So I ordered it. And then when I was going through some gear this weekend, I found another one that I already had that I didn't remember that I had. And so it was kind of like, wow, I don't even know what's in this jumble of a closet. So it was kind of like, I should probably write some of this stuff down.
Nice. Yeah, that's where I started, honestly, with, when I started getting into having a lot of kit and gear and stuff. And this was even before I went in the military. I had started doing this, but I put it all into an Excel document, and, I had columns and rows and kept track of everything. And I eventually moved all that over to Evernote. Yeah. So I spent a long time doing that because I had multiple lists of stuff like that. And I eventually transitioned it over to Evernote and put checkboxes, because one thing that I found was over time I would reference those lists in building out what I was going to take somewhere. I don't do that necessarily so much anymore because we've amassed so much stuff here. Right. And everything's pretty well labeled, so I'm able to just kind of know already in advance kind of what I need to grab for the certain situation I'm going into. But it is always good to have a list to reference for that. So one thing I liked about Evernote is it gave me the option to put a checkbox there.
Absolutely.
So instead of having there's some pros and cons, obviously, because with Excel you can sort the columns and you can say, hey, show me everything in black, or multicam if you have that as an option on a column or something like that. So there's pros and cons to both systems, and I found myself more so using the function of Evernote, which was checking it off when it's checked out, so to speak, and I've taken it somewhere, versus and then unchecking it when it's back in, so I know what I took and what I'm bringing back in. That can be kind of a pain, but
and the spreadsheet and the Evernote and everything, it's just like getting things done. It's like your system is only as good as you make it, and so the second you fall off of adding something, then you can't trust your list, and so it just becomes this big behemoth. So that's what I've been trying to kind of wrangle down, because I've had lists before, but like they're outdated and I don't have the info updated, so I'm trying to be a little bit better about that.
And that's really what it is. It's how much work do you want to do to keep it organized, because it is work. And I think that it's better to put in that work on the forefront to have a better organized system, whether that's even just shelving.
Yep.
Everything helps. Any little bit that you can do to keep your stuff more organized helps you in the long run. I think it's easier to grab when you're going somewhere. It's easier to put back when you come back.
Yep.
It's easier to keep track of all around.
Well, because otherwise you end up like I used to have like, I have a pouch. It's in here, and then you just end up with this like scattered circle of nylon gear to where it's like, oh, here it is. And now like you got to take all that time to put it back. So that's why I like what you had done with your kind of bin organization of like, each bin has a theme, really.
Right.
And it's super easy to think of like, what is this? Oh, it's a GPS. Okay, well, that's going to be going into navigation or something like that.
Yeah, and that's what I've really come to as well, is as my organization is built out and we've accumulated so much stuff here with ITS and the gear testing stuff, tasting, I should say. But when I'm using stuff, it really does make sense to have it by those themes, because I do start accumulating multiple pieces that are more in a theme like that than they would kind of as a standalone. So, rather than putting in a GPS in an electronics bin, there's just so many different categories that have electronics. It just, it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So the biggest thing, and where I would suggest to start for everybody out here that's listening, is that I would start with consumable versus non-consumable.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge difference in my mind of where I think the best course of action would be to start, because consumable is anything you're using, like batteries for your gear, notepads, tape, paracord sometimes could be a consumable. It just really, like pens and pencils and anything that could wear out or fall apart and you need new stuff of, which I get that gear has that, as well, so to speak.
Well, I think that consumables are much more rapidly replaced.
Correct.
So, like, I'm much more likely to need more tape than a new
Once
pouch.
you use a Chemlite, it's done.
Yeah. So you're going to need to keep more spares of that stuff. Right. And that's a great point, because, like, I've gone to grab Chemlites. It's like, I don't have any. I'm out, So.
Yeah, so, I mean, categorization is important.
Yeah.
A list is somewhat important. But one thing that I found way back when, and then I've used forever, is those clear storage bins from Container Store. So it's like I think they're like $3 a piece. They're the men's shoe box, I think is what they're called.
I forget what the size, but it's a standard men's shoe box.
Yeah, it's not a regular shoe box, because the regular ones are more for fitting women's shoes, so they're smaller. But the men's shoe boxes are like the perfect size.
They're oversized.
Yeah. So that's usually how I start with, I guess, the gear for the categories. And then once I kind of grow out of that box, which I've done for certain categories, I move to larger ones. So like, let me think of one. I know that security has
a much bigger bin
a much
now.
bigger one. Yeah. And holsters has a huge one. So there's another delineation there. So then there's the men's shoe box. Then the next size I use from Container Store is I think it's the hat box.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. It's a little more square.
It's boot box. It's the boot box. Yeah,
that makes sense.
And then the hat box is the big one.
Yeah,
that like my holsters are in, and that's even overflowing.
Yeah.
So everybody out there that carries concealed should have an equal amount of
box of holsters.
Holsters that you've tried out. It's not
I was just talking about
anymore.
that this morning. I have like an Uncle Mike's nylon holster that I can't bring myself to get rid of.
Yeah.
But I think another good thing too is like if you do end up filling up a bin, maybe your category wasn't specific enough. Like you said, like I have an electronics bin, but like if it gets too full, then you might need to separate it. I was like, oh, here's a bunch of radios, that's comms, that kind of stuff.
So that's a good point too, that if you get to the point of your filling capacity of something like that men's shoebox, it might be a if this then that kind of thing. Like if it's overflowing and there's multiple things from the same category, maybe it's better to split into categories, or maybe it's better to just make the box bigger.
Yeah, so, it's like whatever fits your system at the time, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And another big part of that is shelving. That's something I always get asked about, because if you watch any gear tasting episode, I'm always usually shooting video, but with those shelves behind me, and everybody's like, where do you get those shelves? And even though I've said it a bunch of times,
it's worth
I'll say
repeating.
It here too. Yeah, it is worth repeating. And it's really simple. It's just Lowe's sells a shelving system, and I think they've even rebranded it, because I looked it up right before this podcast just to make sure that they still had it. And I think it's like $180. It's called the Gladiator system now, so they have rebranded it a little bit. Still looks the same. It's like a black metal steel shelving.
And it's got wire.
Yeah, so it's got 4 shelves, so to speak. So it's about, I think it's like 72 inches wide and it's not too deep. It's just kind of
It's a perfect depth.
Yeah.
That's I walked into that.
Sorry,
one. Walked right into it.
I was trying to avoid that. There just really wasn't a way to do it. Anyway, so, and I have 2 of those. So, whatever, 70 to 114. Is that right? 140? 100,
probably not. I think it's like 140.
Yeah, 144. There you go. So that's how wide it is with 2 shelves. And then, math.
Math is not the strongest.
Math is not good around here. If you listen to our podcast, you know that already. I have to use a calculator for pretty much everything.
My hands are sweating now.
I had to do math today.
It was hard.
But so the metal shelves are put into place kind of in a system where you have to use a rubber mallet to kind of hammer them down and secure them. It's kind of like an eye drop system, like the Keymod system. Yeah.
It's like Keymod, but for shelves.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So that's how the shelves interlock. If you're
so you can set your heights.
Correct. So I actually have the first shelf makes up the base of the shelf. So I have that very near ground level. And then I have a second shelf that's maybe 1.5 feet or so.
Yeah, probably.
Something like that off the bottom. And I keep kit bags down there on one side. So the kit bags store all like the bigger nylon gear stuff like pouches and things like that. And I have multiple kit bags that all have,
and they're color coordinated, which I think is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like to me that's the best part of like the OCD thing is like, oh, you need a digital pouch. It's in the digital kit bag, which is like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's the level of my OCD. It's crazy. You should see my shirt collection at home. It's all color coordinated. Drives my wife crazy. Anyway, but she has caught up, bless her heart. We've been married for, whatever.
She's on it now.
13 years now, so she's finally like, her closet actually looks really good on her son. It's taken her a while, but we got her there.
We got there.
Yeah. But yeah, so then I have a shelf above that kind of sets the top of that area where the kit bags go in. Okay. And then there's one that's probably a good 3 feet, I'd imagine, 3 or 4 feet, probably off that one, and what I use that area for is to use coat hangers on. So I'll store like the plate carriers and chest rigs and things like that on coat hangers there because the shelving itself is a wire rack system. So you can kind of slip a coat hanger hook through there, and use that as the hanging system.
Yeah, and so people that have seen the videos is like there's not like a hanging rod or anything in the middle. It's just on the wire, which I thought would kind of bow eventually, but I mean,
they're actually really strong shelves. Yeah, believe it or not.
And I mean, you've got like carriers. One of them has armor in it and that kind of stuff. So like, it's got some weight on it, and it doesn't seem to be affecting the wire at all. Yeah, they do good.
And then there's a small shelf above that, and I've just kind of got miscellaneous stuff up there, and then like helmets and things. It gives a nice shelving area for those things because that's probably a smaller dimension in height than the bottom where the kit bag is. So. And then, of course, the top of the shelf is the flat top of the shelf, and that's where I put like backpacks and things like that. I still need to come up with an OCD way of organizing those. Like we've talked about some kind of pulley system before to hold all the backpacks because those are, I know that's a first world problem, but I have a shitload of backpacks and I'm not sure what to do with them. Because it is tough to know what I have when I can't really see anything, and that's really the underlying principle behind all this is to organize your stuff in a way that makes it easy to see as well. So it's not just about getting to it and knowing where things are at, but also, visually being able to see the stuff you need to.
Well, that's why I think clear bins are super important.
Yep.
Anything you can put
that's a good
clear.
Point that we didn't mention is that they're clear.
Tried really hard not to have stuff inside of like another bag that I can't see. One of the big things I've started doing is like, if it goes to the range with me, then it should be in the range bag all the time. That way the range bag is just good to go. All you have to do is pick it up and go. There's no question about like, oh, did I put the staple gun in there or anything like that.
And that's the next gen of my organizational bliss is that I want to get to the point where I have a list of, like a laminated sheet, which, showing my super OCDness, right? So I want a laminated sheet that says, I'm going to the range. Here's what I need. Like, here's the shit I have to grab. I don't have to think about it. I just have to look at this list and I have to put it in the bag and I have to go. Because that's one of the parts that I don't like either is I like trying to be as efficient as possible, and it takes so much time to pack and unpack and all that stuff. And unpacking is always going to be what it is. And that can be aided by the fact that you already have places for everything. But packing can be somewhat of a pain because it's always that ambiguous, like, do I take this? Do I leave this behind? Like, But once you do something over and over again, there's nothing to say that you shouldn't have a list that you can take, because you've done it before. It's repetitive. It's a repetitive task.
Yep.
Having a workflow, so to speak, of what you need to do, to go do that event, which, would pay off. So
yeah. Well, and so something else I'm working toward is, like, one of the things is the staple gun. I used to take it out and I put it back in my garage. And then what I realized is, like, just buy a second staple gun.
Yes.
And put it in the bag. And so
Excellent point.
What I'm trying to do is the same thing, like the laminated sheets, but I'm just going to put it in the bag, and then I'm going to put the sheet on it. And if for some reason I need to take something out, I'll cross it off. That way the next time I look at the bag, I know, oh, hey, that hearing protection isn't in there. And the question becomes, why did I take that hearing protection out? Oh, I really needed it over here. Can I just get a second set of hearing protection? Is it cheap enough? I mean, some stuff I don't want to buy multiples of because of the expense, but for the cheap stuff, I just recently bought like 2 extra Gerber multi-tools that were like $25. And like, I'm constantly moving my multi-tool around, and now I don't have to because it's just in 3 spots.
Well, especially for things like, the bags we've talked about, packing for emergencies and things like that. You definitely want to do it for those purposes. But even if it means that it's always going to be where you need it when you need it, it makes sense to have a spare. So, and it's also a backup too.
Yeah, it never hurts to have spares of stuff.
Sure. 2 is 1, 1 is none.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the big thing. And then, I guess that's probably the overarching explanation of, how I have things. And then I do have some different wire shelving where all those plastic bins are stored. So there's no plastic bins on the large steel shelving like I explained. They used to be, but I've since moved those to smaller wire shelving.
And that wire shelving is like...
It's super cheap.
I think it's from Target or something like that. Or a lot of people call it food shelving because I guess it's popular in the food industry, but you don't have to buy food grade shelving if you're just doing gear and stuff.
Yeah. And you can get those wire shelves from pretty much anywhere. They're pretty ubiquitous. The ones I have are black, so it might take you a little longer to find black ones, but I like them. They're sturdy. It's still great to use a rubber mallet on those too to put them together, and you almost need to in certain situations, especially if you put the shelf on the wrong height. You need some way
which
to
is
get
actually
it off.
super easy to do.
Yes, believe it or not. But yeah, that's kind of the system I've had for a while now, and it's worked for me. It's all been a progression.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started kind of accumulating stuff like that and, camping equipment and things, I just kind of had it in. Oh, I do have some Sterilite bins too.
Yeah.
So
the larger ones.
Yeah. Those are kind of the
deep storage,
the catch-all like camping gear and the glamp. I think there's one labeled glamping, and
I love that.
Yeah. So labeling's a big part of that too.
Yeah.
Is that's what really helps me out from an OCD perspective too, is using like one of those little Dymo label printers.
Those things are awesome.
Yeah, and
just label everything.
Yeah, I do. I literally label everything. We labeled the label maker, I think. I think the label maker has a label that says
it
label
should.
maker.
You got to know.
And our big clock in the warehouse
is
big ass clock. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going through a spreadsheet phase right now where I started actively looking at it. So the thing that tripped me on that was that I was looking over the rifle that I just built, and I found out that my aim point optic has a serial number, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so it made me realize, like, I've always tracked gun serials and important electronic serial type stuff, but I haven't really tracked the little stuff. And so I started running through, like, every one of my radios has a serial number that I hadn't really thought about. So I've started logging that, and it's kind of like, I really like the feeling you get after you like clean a room and it's like done. So I'm doing that on a bin by bin basis, like just opening it up and say, okay, I'm going to categorize everything in here, put it in a place, where did I get it, that kind of stuff. And I just do it while I'm sitting there watching TV, and it's therapeutic for me. Other people might be like, "Oh no, absolutely not." But if you're into the organization,
there's
stuff,
some people that have already turned off this podcast.
Like, no, thank you,
not for me.
But it's helped me too to familiarize myself with what I have, and it's actually helping me sell stuff on eBay because it makes me realize, like, oh, I don't need this, that kind of stuff. So
no, it's great to go through stuff like that.
It's been interesting.
Yeah, and on the to jump back real quick onto the coat hanger side, I use a combination. So I'll use kind of some black plastic coat hangers, which I think are from Container Store too. I may spend some time in Container Store in my life, but
just a bit.
Yeah, so that's where some black hangers are for like clothing items, because opposite on the other shelf, so the second shelf I have to the right, I have more uniform-related stuff and camouflage and things like that, and those are just kind of usually regular coat hangers unless something's heavier, and then the plastic coat hangers kind of warp over time, and I'll find myself going to some kind of wood coat hanger or something.
Yeah.
But on the other side where the chest rigs and plate carriers and stuff are at, I've always used those World's Strongest Coat Hangers.
They're beefy.
Yeah, I found those to be really good. Tough Hook came out, and I really like those. They've just got a particular place in my mind. Like, I don't feel they're necessarily a replacement or even somewhat of a competitor, really, for the World's Strongest Coat Hanger. I think they work in conjunction with each other. So if I was going to have a standard dedicated plate carrier that I used all the time, and it was also something I took with me a lot, I would get a Tough Hook for that because
it has a handle.
Yeah, so basically you just flip it around, and the bottom side of it has a handle, and you can just carry it places.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it is a cool feature of that. So that's something I wanted to mention too. But I like the World's Strongest Coat Hangers. They're good because they have some little I don't know what you'd call that. On a shirt, you call it an epaulette, but like there's little cuts.
Yeah, for like the pads.
Yeah, so like you can it's got a little groove that's cut out that you can kind of drop stuff into. And it's great for kind of accessory straps and things that are typically on plate carriers and chest rigs and stuff too. So it's a good, well-versed, all-around coat hanger. So it's great for scuba stuff too. Like I use it for my wetsuits and BCs and things like that. So.
And you never have to worry about warping because it's just a really strong, rigid plastic.
It's super durable.
And I mean, we've had a carrier that's got like level floor plates in it that's been hanging out there forever, and it's fine.
Yeah, and they're made in the U.S. too, which I like. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, those are coat hangers. No, but I mean, the philosophy for organization goes back quite a while, and it's all been an evolution. And I'm not claiming I have the 100% best way to do it, but it's really worked for me, and it's how it has always kind of evolved into, and that's just kind of where I'm at with it today, is that this is the stage that I'm at. And like I said, I do want to do the thing to where I've got a standard, kind of checklist, loadout list for different activities like shooting or backpacking. I think I mentioned that when we were talking about lightweight backpacking. I want a backpack that I can just grab that's got everything in it. So I just have to toss food in or something, and then I can, hit the trail. So that's kind of the purpose with that too. Like when I go shooting, I want to always just have a specific set of stuff I take, because I always do that anyway, but it's always kind of and that, and that. Like I don't want to have to do that anymore. I just rather look at a list and say, yep, there's that, got that.
Yeah, so you're just working off of a checklist at that point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefit in that.
And of course stuff will change, like if I take a specific gun, I'll need different kind of ammo, but ammo as a whole is probably like what I would say.
Now you have like sub lists.
Yeah.
That's like the ultimate nerdiness of like, I'm taking this gun, it's like, all right, activate this sub list.
No, that's just ridiculous. Like even for me,
that's where ridiculous. We draw the line.
That's where I draw the line. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play that game. I know that I need ammo, so I should be intelligent enough to know the gun I'm shooting.
Well, and that's the thing that I think the whole thing is about, is it's whatever you want to do. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that when they do like an organizational system, is like, oh, I don't like doing this. Then don't do that. You know, if you don't like getting down to the granular level of categorization, then don't. Call it nylon, and then dig through if you like to dig, or if you like to root around, do that. I mean, it's however you want to keep it organized.
Yeah, those kit bags that I keep a lot of stuff in can get overwhelming sometimes. If I'm looking for a specific pouch, I usually have to wind up dumping the whole kit bag.
And it's all the same color, which doesn't help.
So. Right. Yeah. So that can kind of get annoying. Yeah. One thing I thought of is Eagle a long time ago made these kind of roller bag inserts. It was almost like a padded panel of PALS webbing.
Oh, cool.
So you could kind of clip in all your different MOLLE pouches on that. So I thought that might be a way to kind of organize.
You could kind of see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get around to doing something like that at some point.
That's a cool idea.
It's kind of like the old, if you're familiar with Eagle's like MLCS kits and things like that, they had this big bag that opened up.
Yeah.
And it had like multiple.
And it's what came with like the loadout.
Yeah. So that's the same principle. They had a bunch of PALS webbing everywhere, and they just had all the pouches laid out in there so you could kind of get a view of what you had.
That's the ultimate OCD organization.
Yeah.
Direct from them.
The problem with those is that it's like now you've got this huge, I don't know, what was it, like maybe 4 foot wide bag by 3 feet deep, and you're just dragging around this big bag that's
like, this is efficient.
Yeah, I mean, it's only maybe a foot depth or
Yeah.
width or whatever. So yeah, it's just kind of like
just a cumbersome.
yeah. Well, I mean, where do you put that?
Yeah.
So
It all piles into a much smaller bag if you
Right.
just don't care about
Correct.
organizing it on the pals.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
yeah. So anyway, that's my potential next upgrade, or just to
That would be
to
pretty
figure
cool.
out something like that. But yeah, I mean, what I have is working pretty good so far, and
And that's what matters.
yeah, and it's really not that expensive. I mean, the most expensive stuff is the shelving, but anybody that's got a garage needs good shelving anyway. And
Sure.
honestly, $179 isn't too crazy for shelving, and you can probably get those other wire shelves for probably in the neighborhood of $30 to $50. If
Yeah, I think they're around there.
I think they might even be cheaper at Target, but
Yeah.
Target's got their new redo everything to
Lower prices.
look more hipster now. So I don't know if they still have those shelves or not. But anyway, our Target just got remodeled, so
Ugh.
yeah, they've got a bunch of frou-frou stuff everywhere.
They've replaced the good quality gear with frou-frou.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, but anyway, the wheels have fallen off Target. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else we could really mention along those lines. I mean, we talked about kit bags and
Yeah.
storage containers and
Container Store, if you haven't been, or if you have one in your area, check it out.
Yeah.
You'll get tons of ideas of I should use this for this. So
it can kind of be a blessing and a curse.
yeah.
So you can get tied up in that store for a long time. Yeah, I remember growing up, and I've always had fond memories of the Container Store. My dad took me in there one time, and we bought one of those little cases for a ball, like a baseball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like the display case.
Yeah, so they've got a ton of cool stuff in there. I mean, everything from things like that to storage bins and
They
shoe
have some pretty
boxes
good
and-
luggage trunks too.
Yeah, they're not a sponsor, by the way. We're
No.
just touting Container Store.
You can go other places to
Yeah.
get containers.
Yeah.
Not Target though.
Honestly, though, I've really never seen those clear bins like that around many places.
And if I have, they've been expensive.
Yeah. Walmart's where I got those Sterilite bins. They have a bunch of
Yeah.
different Sterilite bins there. But
Yeah, they have a pretty good selection.
Walmart's a good place to hit up, too, for organizational bins and things like that, too. But, yeah, so that's what it's like to be OCD and have way too much to talk about when it comes to how you store your gear. I don't just store it in a big bag. Thanks for listening to Gear Tasting Radio. We are on Patreon now, so if you'll consider visiting our Patreon link, which is in the show notes, or the episode intel, rather, we'll have a link to Patreon, and that's our way of allowing you to kind of help support our goals with the podcast and the video content that we're doing. We've got some pretty lofty, ambitious goals, and you're welcome to check those out because they're on our Patreon page. So if you can spare a couple bucks and you like what we're doing, we would love your support. So thanks for watching or listening. It's listening, right?
Either
That's what
or.
we're doing?
Whatever.
We're
They
doing
could be watching, they
podcasts,
could be
right?
listening,
We
yeah.
do video, too, so it's kind of hard to
However it's
keep
coming to
straight.
you right now.
Every Tuesday is when we do Gear Tasting Radio, so check us out. We're on iTunes. Subscribe if you like what we're doing, and give us a review if you like. Thanks.